Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Fox, and today I'm going to show you how I made this medieval Lady Bo-Katan helmet. So how many of you have seen a piece of art that you instantly knew that you had to either cosplay or make yourself? And that is exactly what happened to me whenever I came across this Lady Bo-Katan design that Jake Bartok made. It's fantastic. He has an entire line of medieval characters from Star Wars, and I highly recommend that you check out his print store. He's got a ton of stuff. He's a fabulous artist. And I reached out to him on Instagram and asked him if it'd be okay for me to cosplay his design, and he said sure, so the seed was planted. I was basically word vomiting all over social media that I was going to do this cosplay, and esoteric.fx on Instagram actually reached out to me and let me know, hey, I'm working on this helmet as a 3D printed file if you'd like to try it out. So I graciously accepted his offer to test out this file, and I'm receiving no other compensation other than that, but he did give me an Etsy code for you all to use on his Etsy store whenever this is live, and I'm going to flash it right here on the screen. It's VaultFox10, and that'll get you 15% off any of the files in his store. Now, on to the actual files themselves. When you purchase this file, you'll end up with 6 individual STL files, the first of which will be the helmet itself all as one piece, which is how I decided to print it, and then you'll also get the wing file, which you'll be able to mirror in Cura or your slicing software of choice to get the other side. So here you can see that this is actually for the left side, I mirrored it, and now it's for the right side. And he also does provide the helmet piece itself, broken up into 4 individual pieces if you'd like to break them down even further. Alright, so I'm out in the garage and the Aries is here to assist. I'm just gonna get ready to put some more bondo on this helmet, and this is what it's looking like right now. If I remember correctly, this helmet took about 4 days to finish on the printer bed, and as you can tell, I've got a little line of bondo up at the top because, as always, my print decided to fail at the very end, and I had a little top part just completely missing on the top of my helmet, so I had to reprint that part, and you know, it just wouldn't be a 3D project if there wasn't a printing failure, so that's why I'm going ahead and bondoing and sanding down that seam right there. I'm only bondoing that specific seam right now because I know that that seam is going to take multiple layers of bondo, and I'd like to get a nice little head start on that before I do the entire helmet. Once that mistake is partially covered, I go over the entire helmet with some of that bondo as well, and then I start to sand. I typically use a mouse sander in the first stages of sanding a helmet. I use anywhere from 200 to 120 grit to get it down to a nice, as smooth as I possibly can surface, and then I just kind of keep on going until it's as smooth as I want. The mouse sander is pretty good about getting into all the nooks and crannies of this helmet, but I do like to go in with a little bit of hand sanding along all of those edges and to just get some of that bondo gunk out of them and just make it a little bit more smooth. Once it's all sanded down and to my liking, I like to go over the helmet with a shop vac and vacuum up all of that nasty bondo dust and to clean it all up for the next step of primer. Once that helmet was all cleaned up, I went over it with a little bit of that 2-in-1 automotive filler primer, both on the helmet itself and the wings. And I let that cure for about an hour or so, and it was on to more bondo. The wings I printed were admittedly in pretty bad shape, and that was 100% on my printer and it not being dialed in. It's not any mark of the file itself. So I decided to go over the entire wings again with some bondo. I didn't do an initial layer of bondo, just, I don't know, I think I was lazy. So you can really cut your time here if you do this before the primer, but do as I say, not as I do. The helmet itself also still had a couple rough spots, so I went over those with bondo, and as you see here, I ended up just coating the entire helmet with another layer of bondo because it seemed like every single spot I saw was just raggedy and needed a little bit more TLC. So again, you can alleviate this by not putting your primer on top, but sometimes the primer actually brings out the spots that we need to pay more attention to, so maybe it was a good thing that I did that. I then let that bondo dry for about 2 to 4 hours, and then I come back in with my palm sander again with the 120 to 200 grit sandpaper, getting it down as smooth as I possibly can. Let's ignore that I'm reusing footage because I lost the footage before. This is the part of the helmet making where you're basically going to have to do the lather, rinse, repeat method with bondo, sanding, and filler primer. Just keep on doing that with as many layers as you deem fit that you need to get it to the smoothest that you want. I think I ended up doing about 4 layers of bondo with about maybe 2 to 3 layers of filler primer, but again, it's all up to you with how smooth you want it to get. with your standards that you want to be upheld to, but I tend to get pretty lazy at the very end of a project, and I kind of don't really care about some of the layer lines. But you may be different than me, so do what you want. It's your helmet. As you can see here, I'm switching from my palm sander to hand sanding all of those wings because I found that hand sanding those wings was a lot easier than using my palm sander to get under all those little crevices. As I'm bondoing, I do want to remind you all that if you're working with this special bondo in the tube, or even the two-part bondo that you mix together with a small working time, make sure you're wearing a respirator and make sure you're wearing gloves when you work with this stuff. This stuff is toxic, this stuff is nasty, you do not want to breathe this in, you do not want to get it on your skin. It takes forever to get off if you get it on your skin, so make sure you go to your local Harbor Freight or your Lowe's store and pick up some of the thick black nitrile gloves. Those won't eat, the bondo will not eat through those type of gloves, and they're the most durable that I've found. So make sure you're being safe whenever you're crafting, guys. Now that I've got the helmet and the wings smooth and to the point that I want them, I'm going to start by trying to actually attach those wings onto the helmet. And to do this, I just made sure to sand the opening really well to give the super glue something to grip onto, and did the same thing with the part that's going to attach to the helmet. As you can see here, there's a little bit of a gap between the visor and the wing itself. That's 100% my fault, and we can fix that later. So I'm going to just continue on and glue the other wing on. And here's what it looks like all put together. It's finally starting to look like something. I'm so excited. I then hit the whole helmet with a final layer of that filler primer just to make sure that I haven't missed any little nooks and crannies that need to be smoothed over. But I think I'm pretty good. Crossing my fingers. Once the helmet was all dry, I went inside and used some epoxy sculpt on the inside of the ears to just kind of reinforce them and fill in a little bit of the gaps that I had from, misaligning them in the front. And that's what I also did on the little cracks on the side, as you can see. I did have to go in with a little bit more bondo after my last filler primer, and that's okay. That tends to happen to me again. Like I said, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to filling in stuff. So I'm just going in with a little bit of hand sanding, and then I think I should be good and ready to paint. I like to give all of my helmets a nice black base coat, and here I'm using Montana Gold Shock Black. You can use any type of spray paint that you want as long as it's matte. I just like to use Montana Gold because it cures pretty quickly and allows me to get a lot of layers in. You can even use acrylic paints if you want. You can use airbrush. It's totally up to you. Don't let me stop you, because I'm not going to, because I don't know where you are and I don't care. No, I do care. I want you to make this helmet, but just do what you want. Don't backseat craft, people. Use what you got on hand. Once that black base coat is all nice and dry, I think it only took about 30 minutes for me, I go in and do another coat of silver this time all over the helmet. And I'm doing this because, one, whenever I weather the helmet, I want some of that silver to show through, and two, the majority of the helmet is going to be silver and blue, so I just wanted to do one or the other colors, and I figured that blue is easier to cover up silver than vice versa. Once that silver coat is all nice and dry, I then go in and do some masking. And right here you can see I masked off all the spots that I want to remain silver. And I'm going to go in with Montana Gold and Signal Blue and spray the rest of the helmet blue. I let that blue cure overnight, and then I go back in and did a little bit more masking. This time I masked everything off except for the top part of the cheeks, and I'm going to spray in some Montana Gold and ultramarine to get that little darker cheek that's going on in the art. And the last thing for me to do before I can get on to weathering, which is my favorite part, is put on those outlines. I don't even know what they're called. God, just kill me. Just oust me from the Star Wars community. Now to do that, I actually just took some vinyl tape and masked out the design myself. You could also go online and search for a template and cut it out of paper and make a little tape template like I did in my Rex video, which I will show up above. And yeah, that's all that I ended up doing. I painted in the lines with some leather paint. You could use, again, any type of black paint that you have, but again, this just ended up working for me and I had it on hand. Now it's on to the weathering, and what I'd like to do for weathering helmets is taking some water, some black acrylic paint and just mixing that up into a cup and just kind of painting all over your helmet like you're painting it regularly. You just want it to sit there for maybe a couple seconds, and then you're just going to take a paper towel. I like to use the blue shop towels from automotive stores and wipe the majority of it away. And what this does is it'll get down into the nooks and crannies and all those little cracks, and it'll really bring out some depth to your piece. And after that's all dry, I just go in and use a chip brush and take some silver metallic paint and just kind of go over all the tips and tops of things that might have seen some battle or some wear and tear. And then as a finishing touch, I'm just taking a small pencil-thin brush with that same silver metallic paint that I was using to dry brush, and I'm just kind of going over some tops and edges and doing a little bit more detailed little highlight work. As you can see around the visor, I'm doing a little bit around the eye holes and along the cheeks. And with that, the helmet is all done and we can actually wear it, and it looks so cool. I'm so happy with it. I want to say thanks again to esoteric.fx for reaching out to me and providing me this file for free to test out. Really love it, really thankful for you to allow me to do this. And also thanks again to Jake Bartok for not only being an awesome dude and being totally cool with me, just running with this cosplay idea, but for providing really awesome cosplay and fan art inspiration to the community. It's really appreciated. And thanks as always to you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.